Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to a graphic novels recommendation video. I'm in one part recommending graphic novels and also just talking about all of the graphic novels that I've read in the hope that you guys also recommend me stuff as well in the comments. First, I'd like to jump into one that's an oldie but a goodie, and that is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. And this follows a boy whose mother has a terminal illness, and so it talks about grief and coping and family in this book. And it was a very sad book. I gave it 4 stars, I think, from memory. I really enjoyed it for what it's worth, because I feel like I can't say I enjoyed a sad book, but I did like this one. It's not my favorite of all the graphic novels I've read, but it is a nice staple if you're wanting to get into them. And because it's drawn in kind of a dark pencil sketch style, I think it's quite accessible for people. I do prefer personally graphic novels with a little bit more color, but I do like this one as well. It felt sketchy and dark and grieving, so it was conveying in the art what you're supposed to feel as a reader, which I quite appreciated. And then we've got one that's quite pole opposite to A Monster Calls, and that is Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. And again, this is a standalone like the previous book, and this one follows a little witch or a little character named Nimona, and I think she's a shapeshifter, and then it also follows a wizard. And this Nimona and wizard are in this village, I think, and there is a dark force or like a massive force of something, and both of them have to team up together to address this. I can't remember if the magician in here is evil or not, but I like the partnership in here and how it becomes kind of like a father-daughter partnership. I like how wholesome it is. I like the humor. I like how easy the panels are to understand. I like how it felt like the story was moving along quite quickly. So I would highly recommend this. I gave it 5 stars when I initially read it. And if you're looking for a fantasy book that's a little bit cozy and just easy to snap up, then this would definitely be one that I recommend. And now we've got one of my favorite series, and that is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This is a set of 5, so the next one comes out in January 2023, but the current 4 of them are available. And while this is a series, it's a very quick series to read and catch up on. It follows Nick and Charlie, and is a boy at school who has been outed as gay. He's quite comfortable in his sexuality, but he gets consistently bullied, and that has done quite a number of mental trauma on him. And he comes across Nick, and Nick starts sitting next to him in form group, and they become friends based on their proximity. And then after that, it's kind of a boy meets boy romance, and Charlie develops a massive crush on Nick. And I just love how sexuality and identity and just the high school experience in general with supporting friends is so wholesome in here. It really captured the wholesome aspect of the high school experience and of the queer friendship group. I just really loved this series, and I've reread it a few times now. I've loved the Netflix adaptation, so it's just something that's nice, again, nice and cozy, and I think it's super enjoyable. And I am reading it as a 29-year-old woman. I know teenagers have loved it, I know kids have loved it, and I know my partner, he has also loved these books. So that does say a lot about how the characters are developed and how well communicative the themes of this book are, or this series are. I really adore it, and I'm definitely going to reread it again in the future. So if you take one recommendation away from this video, let it be Heartstopper. And the next one is a little bit similar to the drawing style of Heartstopper, but it's quite different in its themes, and that is Bloom. And this also follows 2 protagonists who are guys with a romance, but it actually focuses on Ari, the protagonist, and his family bakery. And so Ari is struggling with what to do with his life. His parents are struggling financially with their bakery, and they're trying to teach him their traditions. The sun has just gone behind a cloud, so if that affects my lighting, then it's just the way it is. At the moment, it's winter in Australia, so consistent lighting is a thing of miracles. But this is a story that follows Ari and his family, and when a boy starts apprenticing at the bakery to keep all of their business running, it's an interesting story based on themes and family and romance. It doesn't necessarily center the romance like Heartstopper centers the romance. This centers the themes of family and identity, which I liked, but I did go into this expecting the romance to be the central focus, and it wasn't, even though it was a feature. So it is queer positive, but it's not a romance, if that makes sense. But I would still recommend this if you're into the idea of it. I liked it, but it wasn't one of my favorite graphic novels that I've read. And now I've seen this one recommended if you liked Heartstopper, because again, it features a male-male relationship at the forefront of the story, I believe. Don't quote me yet though, because I have not read this one yet, and that is Check Please. I know this started as a webcomic, the same as Heartstopper, but that's essentially all I know about it. I like the style that it seems to be drawn in, and I like the hook enough to give it a try, so that is obviously why I purchased it. So keep your eyes peeled. I will have this discussed in a reading wrap up or a review or something coming to my channel shortly, because I really want to read this, and I know that there is a magical readathon coming up in August, so if I can get to it then I will, but this will be read in 2022. Like, I plan on reading it this year, so let me know what you think about it, but also recommend me other graphic novels below. I know I've already asked, but if you have one in mind, please let me know. And now these ones are quite nostalgic ones for me, but I wanted to talk about them anyway, because while you could probably read these and understand them enough if you haven't seen the cartoon, I'd probably recommend watching Avatar: The Last Airbender first, and then reading The Promise and The Search, because these are so much more satisfying when you have all of that character backstory. And to a massive fan of Avatar like me, you're going to read these and see all of the characters and their story arcs reflected in a very honest and reliable way based on the source material. So this is not written by the original creators, but they were consulted in the process of this by the artist and the writer. So they are heavily involved, they're just not the key writers of it. And the way that these writers captured the characters and even the stories and the plots in here, I really respected, was intrigued by, was surprised by. I found myself laughing out loud. It does miss something from the cartoons, but obviously the cartoons are voice acted as well, so it just had that small thing that it was missing. But these are really, really true adaptations of, or from the comics. I really love them. I think I gave both of them 5 stars, and I believe there are more than this, so I need to get my hands on them. So definitely give these a go if you haven't yet, because I've been putting them off for a long time just because I couldn't be bothered. There was literally no other reason why, and now that I've read them and I've loved them, I need to read more of them, and I'm kind of trying to get more people to read them as well. Next up, we've got White Sand by Brandon Sanderson, and I think this is a graphic novel. It's like a graphic novel trilogy. I don't know if there's a bind up or anything, but White Sand follows a character who can basically bend sand, so it seems logical to carry on from Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they can bend the elements. It makes sense to leap into talking about White Sand. So White Sand is about a boy who is learning to become a sandbender, but the more sand that you control, the more dehydrated you become. So I like that there is a toll for the magic, but in this one I didn't love the art so much, and I tend to reach for graphic novels that have a particular art style and a nice flow to them, but this one felt very traditional in terms of like old superhero comics. The art style was very bold lined and very static, and because I think this was Sanderson's first foray into graphic novels as far as I'm aware, it didn't really flow well in terms of the writing and image. So while I enjoyed this, there is a prose version of this story, and I prefer the prose version over the drawn version, and that makes me concerned about his other graphic novel as well, which is Dark One, and I've been putting this off for that reason, because I really don't want to start reading this and then realize I don't like it, but I think I just need to bite the bullet and jump in. Maybe I'll try this and then immediately read Check Please, because Check Please is bound to be something that I enjoy, whereas this I'm still really on the fence about, and I'm considering unhauling it, and I haven't even read it yet because I'm scared of it. This basically centers one character named Paul, which is still a very odd name for a fantasy protagonist to have, in my opinion. But when Paul discovers there are prophecies from another world in which he's destined to become a fearsome destroyer, he'll have to embrace the fear, rise up as the Dark One, and shatter everything. So it's like an inverse hero's journey. It follows the villain, I suppose, which is an interesting concept, but based on Sanderson's previous graphic novel work, I'm not a huge fan of. So given that I love Sanderson as a writer, I'm hoping that his graphic novel and writing combinations have grown since White Sand, because White Sand was just a 3 and I didn't continue. So I'm hoping that because this is all in one, it will be better, but we'll see. But then moving on from 2 graphic novels that I'm on the fence about to 3 graphic novels that I've absolutely adored, and one of them is Mooncakes, and this is blurbed by Casey McQuiston, and I have loved their work in the past in written books, so the fact that they've blurbed this meant that I was quite excited about it, and I read it recently and really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4 stars. This follows Nova and Tam. Nova is a witch in training and Tam is a werewolf, and Tam comes back to town after being stuck as a werewolf for a while because they're trying to track down and fight a demon, because only wolf magic can really have an effect on it. And then Nova is like, well, I want to help you. And so they are both in kind of like a romantic relationship based on their knowledge of each other growing up. It's like a long-standing friendship that they've known each other through, and then Tam moved away for a while and now they've come back. So they've kind of rekindled that romance. And then there's also this lovely support network of friends and family in here. And it was so beautiful and it was drawn so well. And I loved it. I loved it so much. So more of this, please. I love that romance, but in a fantasy setting that's quite cozy. And that's what the other two books in here are kind of similar to. One of them is Lore Olympus, and this follows the Olympic gods that are set in the modern day. So they've got technology and social media. And then we've got Persephone, who has been isolated from all of this because of her mother, and she's entering society and she has no idea what to do. And so we follow Persephone as she's learning who she is, and she's learning everything around her and who to trust and who not to trust. And there is a warning for rape and sexual assault in here, so I will make that very clear before you jump into this. But I loved the way it handled tense and intense themes, as well as having the lightness of Persephone as a protagonist. I think it balanced everything amazingly, and I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. It was beautiful, and the next one comes out this month, so I'm really hyped for it. I've already pre-ordered it, and this is also a webcomic on Webtoon, but it's been adapted into obviously the physical copies. So there's a few on this list like that: Heartstopper, Lore Olympus, and Check Please, and Mooncakes, I think, to name just a few, that started out as a webcomic and have now become physical volumes that I can keep on my shelf. And then second last, because I lied, I said there were 2 left, but there's actually 3. I just haven't had the actual last one on this list physically arrive with me yet. But the second last book is The Tea Dragon Society, and I read this recently and I was just curled up in a ball by how cute this was. It was adorable. So it's about this girl named Greta, and she's part goblin and she's learning blacksmithing from her mums. And then one day she runs into a little tea dragon who is trapped in an alley, saves the tea dragon and takes it back to its owner. And this owner is like, do you want to learn how to foster and care for tea dragons and then harvest their tea because it's a dying art? So she's kind of caught between not knowing what she wants to do with her future, wanting to respect her mother's wishes in terms of learning blacksmithing, and also learn this other lost art in tea making and tea dragon care. And so it's just a beautifully balanced, lovely, wholesome world and story, and just the drawings made me so happy, and the naming conventions, and just the world in here. It was so short, but it was full of so much love, joy, and respect. And so I'm definitely going back to reread this. I would say if you loved Becky Chambers, you're probably going to love this, because it's a similar vibe to Becky Chambers' work. It's very queer inclusive, it's very wholesome, and it's just really settled, and again, fantasy, but wholesome and cozy. I love it. And then there's another one by this author as well called Aquacon Cove, and it's in that similar vein of being wholesome, but I think it talks about nature and someone going somewhere and discovering this aquacorn colony or something. I'm not sure. I'll link all of the descriptions on Goodreads below so you can go and check it out, but it's in a similar art style, and I love the Tea Dragon Society, so I am more than eager to dive into more work by this author. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Come chat to me down below in the comments. I would love to hear your recommendations. As always, I appreciate you giving me a like and a subscribe, but thank you again so much for watching my video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.